The truth is the truth. There are a lot of women that weaponize their child against the men, and I'm going to call it what it is. They sit there and have conversations with their childs, and their son or daughters, and they block out the relationship that father should be able to have with their daughter or son. And the reality is that child is missing out on a great experience. A great experience. Because the reality is, by being exposed to anything else, it can cross-reference your thoughts. You could be living in the hood, but yet still take your child out the hood so much that your child don't even feel like they don't want to stay in the hood. Because they've been exposed to so many other life experiences that they don't want to go there. One of the greatest experiences is a child that grew up with parents that are from a different land. And they was able to take their child back to that different land during summers. Yeah, they lived in the hood, but guess what? Every summer, that child was in Nigeria. Every summer, that child was in Trinidad. Every summer, that child was in Jamaica. Every summer, that child was in Honduras. Every summer, that child was in El Salvador. That kid seen different situations. That's why that kid was exposed to so much more. But when a child isn't exposed to anything, it becomes exactly like the environment in most cases. You can have the greatest parents in the hood, but yet still your child be so hood because of the fact that the environment is also programming and teaching a certain mentality. And then when you have mom who is bitter or dad who is bitter and sit down and talk about baby mama and baby daddy all day, your child will grow up bitter and scorn and hating people. And this is what you see. We weaponize our children.
Welcome to the Don't Let That Go Over Your Head podcast, starring Q the Boss.
Yo, 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 yo. Welcome back to another episode of Don't Let That Go Over Your Head podcast. They call me Q the Boss. Today we're going to talk about it. And there's a lot of people I want to address because I think a lot of people use their children as a weapon. I want someone who's been hurt to understand that regardless of what your child's mother or child's father or whatever you want to call them, your baby mama or your baby daddy has done, it still doesn't give you an excuse to use the child as a weapon against the other parent. I do believe that our culture do this so much to the point where children are being used as pawns in adult problems. This is why you see so many young people are so grown, because you had conversations with your child about grown-up things that they couldn't understand. The best parent is the parent that allowed a child to come to the conclusion of who their mother or father is. But by you falsifying your child to believe what you want them to believe, that means you are diabolical on a whole nother spectrum. It doesn't make sense. The one thing about life is you do not tell a child how to feel about the opposite parent. And if you are doing that, that means we're going to create a race of babies that you're going to see that either A, hate men, who cannot take constructive criticism from men. You know why? Because while you was, ladies as women, telling these men or these young men how to feel about their fathers, you will make them not receptive of constructive criticism from a man. One of my good friends, she works out of a juvenile detention center. And she said, the boys have such a hard problem with getting any kind of scrutiny or any backlash or any opinions from the male people that work at this facility, because the boys haven't learned how to be receptive of hearing a man's opinion, because a lot of those boys take on the energy that the mother might have given them when they were breaking up. What was that? Oh, your daddy ain't this. One of the most famous sayings that everyone knows is you look just like your damn daddy. That's a very famous but true statement. And then you see these kids who grow up angry, bitter, scorned, mad because of the fact that mom was angry, bad, bitter, and scorned, or dad was. I know fathers who will not be there financially for their child because they feel like they're neglecting the woman that they left or that broke up with them, and they don't understand that it's taking out on their child. One of my first bills I would ever pay is any bill that goes towards my children. That's my first bill. When I hear men say, oh, well, I don't give her money because she gonna use it on this, I'm gonna tell you something, and I'm gonna give you our logic. If you worried about what that woman is doing with the money, you gotta look at the fact that when your child lives with the mom, naturally they're gonna spend a lot of money more because they live with the child. Whoever the child lives with definitely spends more money and they lose more time worrying about the child. And I'm gonna call it what it is. Any child that don't live with you, I don't care what no one say, you will definitely become a part-time parent. Anyone that says I'm not a part-time parent, they're lying. The full-time job is when a child lives with you. I'm not gonna say you're not a good father or a good mother if your child don't live with you, but you are not a full-time parent. And anyone that says otherwise, they full of crap, right? And I want to establish something today, and I want my ladies to hear this. If a man is giving you finances, let's stop saying that you are a single mother. No, you are a mother that's single. A single mother is a one that has a singular income that takes care of their children. It is not money coming from another man that's coming into your household, and because you're single, you're trying to make it seem as if you're a single woman. No, you're a woman that's single, but you're not a single parent. Let's stop saying that statement. I know a lot of women who get child support and talking about their single mothers. You're not a single mother. You're a woman that's single, that happens to be a parent. Because reality is that father's involved. And you're discrediting that man by putting yourself in a position of a woman who don't have a man giving them resources. When a woman don't have absolutely no other resources coming in, that's a real legit single mother. That's a single mother. But you can't take credit for something that you know somebody's helping you on. And it's unfair. I don't understand how a man and a woman can go from loving each other to completely loving each other to the point where they can create life, but don't respect and love each other enough where they can raise life. We create life, but we don't understand the real aspect of it is raising a life after the sex part. After you have the encounter, we should be worried about how and who is this person that we're going to create and give to society. Because a lot of times you see young people, they take on grown-up issues and grown-up problems because the grown-ups kept pouring grown-up issues and grown-up problems on them. You can't expect your daughter not be grown when you were definitely speaking to her and having grown conversations about her daddy. You can't be mad at your son or daughter for having issues when you were talking to her or him about their mother. Your mother is this and your daddy's this. This is the culture. We got to stop weaponizing our children. I see a lot of people weaponizing their children, where they use their child as a pawn in the madness in the games that both of you guys are going through. We got to get back to normality. And we got to break this as a cycle. This is a vicious cycle that's continuing where a lot of women, I'm going to say this on record, do not see child support as a means of controlling a man if he's not good with his resources. If he's not giving you no money, I can understand why he's on child support. Child support is not supposed to be because a man and you broke up. Child support is not for a broken up relationship. That's not what child support for. Child support is for a man or a woman who does not take responsibility for their child, so you have to get the courts to enforce what they're not willing to do themselves. Then that's a different situation. But when a person automatically goes for child support, that means you're using the courts as a means of refereeing your breakup. You're refereeing your breakup. What you got, Chris?
Real quick, I just want to read a comment on TikTok. Russeline, I apologize if I mispronounce your name. But she said, I watched my stepdaughter's mother use her as a pawn, and now at age 30, their relationship sucks, sad. And she said, conversely, my son's father had open access to what's absent. At age 30, their relationship sucks, sad.
But this is a reality. You know, the other day I was talking to a lady, right? And she got mad at the fact that the father, he works hard. I must say this on record. A lot of the men that are great providers, they're not great nurturers. Usually a great provider has to date a great nurturer because they know they're not great nurturers. Most great providers aren't great nurturers. So the woman said to the man, Dre, she said, I don't respect the fact that you as a man, you don't nurture the child, you don't spend enough time with our child. But this man is a great provider. But I'm gonna tell you something, if that man was nothing but a nurturer and wasn't a great provider, she would diss him. Sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, we gotta choose our poison. Because in the same breath, she's not the great provider that she thinks she is. She's a great nurturer, but she's not a great provider. So everyone has their flaws and their mishaps. In most cases, you have to choose your poison. In today's society, I think that's a good problem when the man that's raising your child is a great nurturer. Because in today's society, a lot of men aren't great nurturers. So I'm like, this is the issue that we have in society where everybody wants what they want when they want, how they want it, when they want it. And this is a major issue within itself. You have to learn how to accept people for who they are. But falsifying somebody to be somebody they're not is only going to create something called resentment. It's going to create frustration. It's going to create anger. You can see a lot of people frustrated in relationships because the relationship is all about you being what the other person wants you to be to benefit them. That's the most toxic relationship. Let me say that again. When you have a man and a woman and the person that's in a relationship only wants the person to be exactly what they want them to be to benefit them, therefore there's a problem. When you met this person, you knew who this person was, but now all you're doing is trying to make this person what you want them to be. You are diabolical. And that's so unfair. I would never want to date someone who met me in the beginning as the way I am and then continue to complain about who I am. There's the damn door. That means to leave. Because in most cases, the person that you're begging them to be what they'll never be. Because every human has flaws. They have goods and they have bads. They have pros and they have cons. But you got to just choose your poison. We always talk about first world problems. When you look at third world problems compared to first world problems, a lot of first world problems aren't that serious. I think people are sick. You have a man that gets up every day and go bust his behind to pay bills for you, and you complaining about the fact that the man is burnt out by the time he come home, and he don't want to spend a bunch of time with his kids, and he's trying to give them the best possible life that he can give them, and you're complaining? I think we're sick as a culture. I think we're sick. We need to reevaluate what's logic and what's our feelings. Your feelings will lie to you and ultimately make you selfish as hell. Most people that are feeling oriented, they're very selfish. Because your feelings make you biased. Logic makes you logical. Your feelings will always make you biased. And what I mean by bias is, when I'm in my feelings, nothing else seems to matter. That's the bias. And this is a human characteristical trait that a man can be or a woman can be. And if both of us don't acknowledge the fact that this is not just a woman or a male thing, it's a person-to-person thing. You have men who are very selfish and who always want their ways, and you have women who are very selfish and don't want their ways. The culture has gotten so narcissistic to the point that we can't even look at logic anymore. All we do is evaluate our feelings. Your feelings make you impulsive. Your feelings make you irate. Your feelings make you delusional. Your feelings make you not even strategically make educated decisions. I told a girl the other day, I said, you know something funny? You went from a bum dude, got a better dude, and you still complaining about the dude that's not a bum. Then you need to be by your goddamn self and go marry Jesus. You went from a whole bum that didn't want to do nothing to a man that's doing a lot, and you still finding something to complain about. I think some people in society are just never satisfied. They're going to always want more. And the sad thing is what they think they can handle or they want, when they get it, they will not appreciate that. Good.
I was going to add too, with those type of people, that let's just say they find the right person for them, but at the same time, they still think that there's somebody around the corner that's better.
Because that's what social media has done, is created this mindset where they believe that there's somebody waiting for them. Yo, I'm going to be honest with you, and I love my God, and I'm going to be fair. I think it's diabolical if God had to make me wait 50 years to find the woman of my dreams. You know why I say that? If you really look at that, if I'm 50 years old and I had to wait 50 years to find the woman of my dreams, that means either one or two things. Either A, I wasn't the man of her dreams, or B, I was delusional in what I believed that I deserved. So if you think about that narrative, right? I'm not 50, but let's just say hypothetically I was a 50-year-old guy. And the woman of my dreams did not come along until I was 50. That means either A, I was very delusional in what I thought was looking for me, or B, I wasn't the man that was ready for the woman of my dreams. Sometimes when people say they want certain relationships, I'm like, you need to work on yourself before you start complaining about and looking for what you want. Because a lot of times, the people that say they want these things, they actually look for people that's going to accept all their flaws, but they don't accept other people's flaws. You have characteristical flaws that you have, but you want a person to have the perfect foundation. Your foundation is wacky. As soon as the wind blow, you shake. But yet and still, you want a person that don't shake or waver when things are going the way they want. This is crazy, right? And this is the major issue that I'm seeing in society. People want what they want when they want what they want and want it how they want it. And then a lot of times, people aren't logical to the point where they're able to rationalize and logically assess themselves. I think the healthiest person is one who can see what's wrong with them and start working on themselves. The first step to recovery is the simplest step that most people can't do. What is that? Admitting that you have a problem. Most people can't even admit their own problems. So they can't fix their problems because they're not willing to accept that they have problems. The most flawed people pretend to be the most perfect. When I sit back and watch men and women use children as weapons against each other, I think this is the culture, and this is when you're gonna see another sick person going into society to, guess what? Infect somebody else. Your little sons and daughters are going out there infecting other people's children. When we stop being accountable for it? I every day work on my children, so therefore I'm giving society a good person to see in society. But if you look at yourself, right, every day telling your little daughter you don't need a man, what do you think that's gonna do to them long term? They're gonna see a man as what? A paycheck. So basically all you're doing is making your daughter operate in a manner of prostitution. Think about that narrative. If you're sitting there telling your daughter that a man, you don't need a man, and the only time she values a man is what? When she's getting something from him. So every time it's transactional. What is the difference between a prostitute and that? It is the same scenario. It's some level of compensation. The only time there's value there is when there's compensation being there, right? So basically your daughter has just become what? A prostitute. But if we have these conversations, someone gets offended. But this is what we're teaching. We're teaching our children to go, don't be great, but go look for somebody that's great and leech off for them. Listen to that statement again. Don't be great, but go look for somebody to leech off of. Nasty work. This is nasty work. And this is the culture, right? So anyway, I was talking to the lady. I said to her, you got to realize that as an adult, we've been trained to spend more energy on complaining about who people are, rather than saying, you know what, you're not who I want to be, so I'm going to just leave. You'll spend 10 years complaining about somebody for being who they are. You don't think you crazy as hell? Yo, just think about that. 10 years of you complaining about this person. 10 years. Get out your insecurity and get on with yourself. If you really feel like this is a deal breaker, because there's one or two choices that comes in making a decision. Either you're going to deal with it or you're going to leave it alone. But no one talks about the leave it alone factor. All they do is talk about the dealing with it factor and complain about dealing with it. That is so toxic. You love me enough to stay with me, but you can't respect me enough to or accept me for who I am. Listen to that. Let me say that again. You love me enough to stay with me, but you don't respect me enough to accept me for who I am. So every day what you'll do is complain with who I am, never accepting me for who I am, ultimately every day just complaining and complaining with who I am. And a lot of times we don't have choices for who we are. There's 50-50. It's called nurture versus nature. 50% your parents, 50% the environment you come from. When you look at people, the reason why they behave the way they behave is because they were trained to behave the way they behave. If you take a person who's very aggressive, in most cases, they'll do what? Find one or two things. They will find someone that's very passive to accommodate their aggressiveness, or they'll find someone that's just as aggressive as them. You ever seen an aggressive man and an aggressive woman fighting? You know why they're together, right? Because he attracted it. She attracted it. Birds of a feather flock together in all cases. When you see a person that's inconsistent, maybe you're not as consistent as you believe you are. Maybe you're too nurturing. Maybe you're too forgiving. But when we can project, we can look on our insides and see what's wrong with us, then we can project better on the outside. Opposed to just sitting back every day complaining about what we are, we don't see ourselves and say, yeah, damn, why am I keep choosing the same person over and over and over and over? And over and over and over and over. Because you have an attraction. You're attracted because you are that. And they will keep coming towards you because that's what you attract. The other day I was telling a guy, and it was weird because in this conversation, he told me 1,001 red flags for the woman that he's dealing with, 1,000. But nothing he would say, you know what? This is past my deal breaker Let me just get up out of here and leave the situation alone. If the person knows, it's like crying wolf. You complain, then we go back to the relationship, act like it never happened. And then guess what happens when you get mad again? You complain, and then guess what? After it's over, we go right back into the relationship like it never happened. Y'all get stuck in this pattern. I've been in that pattern before. To the point where I would fight, argue, then we eat and make love like it never happened. And then when I get mad again, it comes up again. And this is what you're seeing with our children. We have the most toxic babies I've ever seen in my life. These babies are toxic as hell. Toxic. And ask yourself why. Why? They're not sheltered anymore. They actually see way too much. They know too much. They're involved in too many things that they shouldn't even be involved in. When I was young, my mother said you keep a child in a child's place. But now you complain about your child being in grown-up business when you never checked them for being in grown-up business. Okay, Chris.
I was going to mention real quick, the person complaining about the red flags of their partner or the relationship is no different than someone that knows their bad habits and still resorts to the same bad habits.
But that's our human nature. We're creatures of habit. So in most cases, we do what we feel comfortable with. And once we feel comfortable with something, we will always revert back to what's comfort. One of my comforts used to be every time I would have problems in a relationship, I would go look for another relationship to accommodate the fact that I was having a problem in that relationship. And that became my nature from the time I was 13 on. Because every guy that I was around, and I'm not justifying it, I'm just telling my truth, right? Every guy that I was around, they say, we don't chase, we replace. And I grew up believing that you basically, by saying you don't chase, you replace, you're just saying that you're not willing to fix, even when you're wrong. And then you create this pattern of years of running from situations that you actually created. So there are people who created the toxic environment in their homes, and then they're running to other bedrooms rather than sitting with themselves and looking themselves in the mirror and say, I gotta fix this problem. All they're gonna do is keep replacing and ultimately having the same problem over and over and over because they can't see that they're the problem. So again, when you say you don't chase, you replace, you can't replace yourself. And the real issue is you're running from yourself. And a lot of people have been spending years of their life running from themselves to the point where they actually think they're winning a race. And they get into a relationship 3 years down the road, they back to the same problems over and over. And the only issue is they're getting older and they can't see that they're aging and their situation isn't getting any better because we get so content and complacent to the point we don't realize that the problem is me. If you walk past two people yelling at each other, who looks like the problem? The both of you. And the reality is, that's how you have to be able to see yourself. If you can see how you behave, then you can understand how to fix your behavior. We can't, like I always say, we can't change the world, but we can change how we view the world and how we behave in it. That's the only thing we can do. We can't roll out the red carpet for our behaviors, but then we roll out no carpet for other people's behaviors. Yo, people will dead roll out the red carpet for their behaviors. Legit, roll out the red carpet, accommodate it, and walk down the aisle with their behaviors, and then expect someone to want to marry that. Did you hear that? You rolled out the red carpet for your behaviors and you want somebody to marry that. The other day, a guy said to me, he said, what is the number one person you would never marry? I said, I would never marry someone that can't take constructive criticism. And secondly, I would never marry somebody that's not accountable. I would never in my life marry somebody like that because that relationship is destined for doom. I'm going to say this and somebody's going to get offended. I don't understand why women have a thing that when you approach them about how you feel, why do they feel the need to always bring up something to compliment that moment? Like, for instance, if I go to you about something that you just did to bother me, why are you bringing up something in the past to justify it? That's the worst person to me in life to marry because that person lacks emotional maturity. They don't have emotional maturity. When you're in your feelings, you have to be receptive of another person's feelings. The first rule of acknowledging the other person's feelings shows that you have emotional maturity. Let me say that again. The first rule of emotional maturity is acknowledgement of the other person's feelings. If I can't acknowledge your feelings first, why would I respect your feelings when you can't even acknowledge my feelings?
Real quick, I just want to say, I think the problem is nowadays too, is the fact that we're quick to respond instead of quick to hear.
Because in most cases, people feel like they're being attacked. And when our emotions, and I want you guys to hear this good. When a person has feelings, right? Their feelings become their personality, right? They're so intertwined that if you challenge something that a person did, they think that you're basically discrediting their character or themselves as a person. Black people, we gotta learn how to remove our feelings so much to the point where if a person say they feel a way about something you did, you automatically make it about you. So your feelings are so attached to yourself that you feel like you're under attack. But in reality, the person is not attacking you. They're attacking something you did. But when you can't receive a person telling you about yourself, you just basically said that you're perfect. If a person can't tell you nothing about you, that means you think you're perfect. And that's reality. The world is full of people that think they're perfect. This is why they're not receptive of hearing anything else to grow. The worst relationship to be in and also is a person that don't want to grow, don't want to learn, that don't want to educate themselves. I gave a person a scientific fact the other day and it went left. Rather than going to do your homework on what you're saying, because I don't talk off an impulse, a lot of these things I tell people, go fact check it. Go look it up. Because I'm a researchaholic. I'm a studyaholic. But again, I learn, so therefore I don't sound like a fool talking to people. But the one thing I do realize is that most people believe that they're under attack the moment you question them. They feel like you're disrespecting them. Because again, our feelings are too intertwined with our personality as a character, our character. Your feelings is not your character, right? And this is what we do. We make our feelings our character. And if you say something about how I feel, then you're attacking my character. So therefore, I can't hear you because I'm worried about you. I'm defending my character too much. And that's a major issue within itself. If we can't break this mold, then we can't break the mold. I do see that men and women nowadays don't realize that the new generation of children came from broken people who's created broken people who are only going to create new broken people, and they were going to continue to create more broken people because it's broken people that started creating broken people. It starts from the first generation, and then it goes on and it goes on. The analogy is the dirty water. Your grandfather took a bath in dirty water, followed by your dad, followed by you, and now ultimately your children are also taking a bath in that dirty water. Everyone is filthy, but they think they're clean. And this is what we have right now in a culture of people who aren't willing to get out of the dirty water because there's a teaching over and over and over and over and over. Everyone is reading the same book and wonder why the IQ hasn't advanced. Everyone is reading the Cat in the Hat book from childhood to adult years, and we don't realize why we haven't elevated ourselves. You're still reading the Cat in the Hat book at 40, at 50, at 60 years old. And the Cat in the Hat book don't teach you anything other than what it taught you. A lot of people don't even like to be challenged based on their thought patterns. Again, if it goes against how I feel, I don't want to hear it. And we've been so accustomed to this that we've normalized this thinking to the point where you have grown-ups who have been stuck in childlike mentalities for the longest. And they're going to continue to have this mentality because they don't want to be challenged. I think the more you mature is the more you're willing to be challenged. You know, when you're a child, you avoid challenge. But if you're an adult still avoiding challenge, that means you haven't grown up yet. You haven't grown up yet. We got to learn that it's okay. And I'm going to go on record. And my ladies, I hate when you have a conversation with a lot of women, and the moment I bring up something about women, the first thing they do is say, I'm not like that. Why do y'all always got to make it about you? That is an extreme trait of narcissism. Let me just explain that to you. If I say something like that, there are a lot of women that use children against the fathers. And a lot of women can't acknowledge that. It's because you're making you the standard. And ladies, you're not the gold standard. I'm not the gold standard. Reality is society is bigger than us. And in order for us to fix society, we got to stop making ourselves the whole totality of how other people behave. There are a lot of women that use their children against their father. There are a lot of fathers who wasn't given the right opportunity to help raise their child and co-parent their child healthy because the mother was so sick and mad at the fact that another woman was going to be with this man. She wanted this man to be at his bottom. She wanted him to be at his lows of all lows. But we normalize this mentality. We normalize this mentality. And if you talk about it, oh, you as a man, you're not supposed to say it. I'm definitely going to say it. There are women right now who get good paychecks and still give the father a hard time with seeing the kid. You know, I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to go on record and say this. The courts is so messed up right now. Watch this. If a man has a child, right, and let's say the woman gave him visitation. Well, she didn't give it to him. The courts gave him visitation, right? Let's just say the visit is over at 8 o'clock. If that man drops that kid over at 8:30, you know he can get in trouble? But the woman could not show up to give you your child for a visitation, and she won't get in trouble. And if y'all don't see that there's an agenda there, right, then y'all need to grow the hell up. Because the reason that I'm seeing in society today, the major issue is the fact that the men are being removed from the boys and the girls. Where there's not a dad, you'll see a hoe. Where there's not a dad, you'll see a gangster or an insecure man. Let me say that again. Where there's not a dad, you'll see a hoe. And where there's not a dad, you'll see a very insecure man. And just because a male was in the house don't mean that girl had a man. She could have had a grown male in her house. So somebody gonna be like, well, I know a girl right now, she got both of them. It don't mean her father was a good man. He was just a big male in the house. If you go ask that woman who dealt with him, she gonna tell you that he wasn't a man. He just was a big old body in the house. Didn't lead by no example, didn't put his family in no better positions. The mother made more sacrifices. Right now, I got women who are better hustlers than men. Damn. I call a spade a spade. I know women that hustle harder than men. I know women who are about their BI harder than men. I know women who stand on principles more than men. And I call it what it is. When I talk about men and women, I don't favor nobody. I favor truth. I don't care. If a man get offended or a woman get offended, the truth is the truth. There are a lot of women that weaponize their child against the man. And I'm going to call it what it is. They sit there and have conversations with their childs, and their son or daughters, and they block out the relationship that father should be able to have with their daughter or son. And the reality is that child is missing out on a great experience. A great experience. Because the reality is by being exposed to anything else, it can cross-reference your thoughts. You could be living in the hood, but yet still take your child out the hood so much that your child don't even feel like they don't want to stay in the hood. Because they've been exposed to so many other life experiences that they don't want to go there. One of the greatest experiences is a child that grew up with parents that are from a different land. And they was able to take their child back to that different land during summers. Yeah, they lived in the hood, but guess what? Every summer, that child was in Nigeria. Every summer, that child was in Trinidad. Every summer, that child was in Jamaica. Every summer, that child was in Honduras. Every summer, that child was in El Salvador. That kid seen different situations. That's why that kid was exposed to so much more. But when a child isn't exposed to anything, it becomes exactly like the environment in most cases. You can have the greatest parents in the hood, but yet still your child be so hood because of the fact that the environment is also programming and teaching a certain mentality. And then when you have mom who is bitter or dad who is bitter and sit down and talk about baby mama and baby daddy all day, your child will grow up bitter and scorned and hating people. And this is what you see. We weaponize our children. Why are you sitting there having an adult conversation to a child who has a premature mindset? And you ask that same woman, would you sit there and tell her your personal business about what you got going on that you embarrassed of? Hell to the no, she won't do that. So I don't understand why would you sit there and talk to a child about things that's going on with adults? Because the issue with telling this story all the time, a lot of men and women, they have something called a victim mentality. They always tell a story from the lens of a victim. And I'm going to say this to my ladies on here, and I want y'all to be fair and honest. Anytime a man and a woman break up, why does it always have to be the man's fault without getting your whole story? The moment a man and a woman have an issue and break up, well, he should have never been. Why are you making your experience everybody else's experience? Your experience is not everybody's experience. There are good men out here. There are good women out here. There are bad men out here. There are bad women out here. It's some cases where a good man can get involved with a bad woman and she can taint him. There are some women that are good women who end up with bad men and the man taint her. It happens. It happens. But we can't sit there and make, if you're a good woman, you can't look at yourself as a standard. Man, if you're a good man, you can't look at yourself as a standard. There are a lot of bad brothers out here. There are a lot of bad mothers out here. There are a lot of bad fathers out here. But there are also a lot of good fathers out here. The issue is we take the higher end of every other culture society and we look at our lower end of our culture and then we compare the two. You can't compare a white man who grew up in an upper echelon environment and then you take a black man who grew up in the hood and expect him to have the same mentality. They weren't even exposed to the same things. And that's a harsh reality. But our culture has a mentality where we compare apples to oranges. The reality is, no matter what, and I'm going to keep it 100 with you, no matter what my son, mother, or whatever go on, I will never sit with my child and talk bad about my child's mother. I think that's crazy. I think it's crazy that you would sit there with a child and talk bad about the mother. I think it's crazy that you would sit there and talk about the father. I think it's crazy because everyone knows there's three sides to every story, but the child is so premature that the child won't understand. The one thing I will always reference my mom never ever talked bad about my dad. So when it came time for me and my dad to meet as an adult, I never really had a feeling about him. Did I feel the hardship that we went through growing up? Yes. But I didn't know how to understand him because my mom never talked bad to me about him. My mom never talked to me about my dad. My mom, you know what she say? You'll come to your own conclusion. She'll complain about our struggling, but my mom never pointed the finger to my dad. My mom just got up every day and worked hard. That's all I know my mom to do. I don't know my mom to sit there and talk about no man. I don't know how to do that. And believe you me, I'm pretty sure she probably spoke to her siblings and them like that, but never talked to us like that. My mom was famous for keeping a child in a child's place. I had a mother that if you walked up in a conversation and you interrupted her conversation, she'll smack you. I had that mother. You had to know your place. Until I became an adult, that's when I became an adult. But in the same breath, we have to learn to keep a child in a child's place. Then you'll wonder why I see some of these young girls, right? Look at this crazy narrative. You have girls right now who walk up right now, and this is a fact. Yo, Chris, the girl will have on a wig, eyelashes, makeup, and nails, and she's like 13 years old. And then you tell me why she thinks she's so grown. Explain to me right now. Let's just look at her right now and ask why she thinks she's so grown. Because you didn't give her mind the imagination of when you get older, you should look like this or you can wear these things when you get older. You let 13-year-old girls wear makeup, wear nails, wigs, everything. And then you wonder why these little girls are so grown. I grew up in two environments. Well, I didn't grow up in two environments. I got removed from one bad environment to a better environment. You know the one thing I noticed about moving to a better environment? The statistics went down tremendously. If you look, Dre, that your district that you grew up in, compared to where I grew up in. Where I grew up at, a lot of the women had children and the men had children very young. When I moved over here, I didn't see that like that. And this is literally towns away. A whole town can have a whole different mentality than this one town. And when I got here, I said, damn, these people don't even have babies young. But I was leaving an environment where 17-year-old having a kid was more normal. So that's why I say when you don't see anything that cross-reference your thoughts, you tend to believe that this is normal. Even if your mother and father are telling you it's not normal, you still see it in your environment. So therefore, guess what? You behave. It's like the kid that goes out with his friends and they're stealing. He's more inclined to what? Steal. The perfect analogy is taking a child and walking them into a room with other children and they all doing flips. What is your child more inclined to do? Do flips. It's just what it is. So you see that bitter son or that bitter daughter that's growing up, it's got to look at the bitter parent that raised that bitter child, therefore creating a bitter mentality. There are a lot of people that are just bitter. I'm going to say this, and somebody going to get mad. There was a girl I was dating, and I sat with her, and this is me being honest. I sat with her, and I told her, the one thing I'm realizing with you is you overvaluing yourself based on your educational levels. You think when you get in the dating market, it's going to transcend and lure that kind of guy that you have envisioned in your head because of your educational levels. Ladies, I'm going to go on record and tell y'all this on record, but somebody going to get offended, but I guess what? I love to offend because I love to tell the truth. There are a lot of men that don't really care about your credentials. You know why a lot of men don't care about a woman's credentials? Because in most cases, men don't benefit from a woman's credentials. So therefore, men don't care about it. It's not that he's a hater. It's not that he's jealous. It's nothing of the above. What it is he looks at the fact that your degree, your career, your finances is all for you. So why would I care about what you have going on when in reality, you're not willing to share it wholeheartedly? Most women who become very, 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 very great providers, they do not want to be great providers.
Say that one more time for the people in the back.
Most women that become great providers, they don't want to become great providers. Men work hard to become great providers so they can become great providers. So why would I sit there and listen to you brag about your credentials when you don't plan on giving none of it up anyway? You don't plan on sharing? You're going to make it a competitional thing where now I'm competing with you. So when you look at a lot of the women, I tell women, if you're going to work hard to get this great career and these great finances, be prepared to have a man that might not even be at that level. And it's okay, because if you worked hard to be the provider that you claim you are, then therefore you should be the provider that you claim that you are. Stop fighting with a man for not matching your level of finances because of your materialistic beliefs and your thoughts. You got this lifestyle and vision in your head and you want a man to give it to you. I think that's diabolical. I think it's diabolical. Ladies, if you take on that nurturing role, then understand what it is. You're more likely going to need somebody that's going to be more of a provider. But if a lady takes on this extreme provider role, be prepared to date with somebody that's more of a nurturer. Because I'm going to tell you something. Men are not going to go date somebody that's a great provider and compete with being a great provider, proving their worth to them. They're not going to do that. And you got to look at yourself as an extreme narcissist if you believe that a man that works so hard to build himself, he's going to go fight with you to prove his masculinity. Who are you, Jesus? You got to look at yourself as crazy. Why do you believe that a man has to prove his worth to you? Who are you? When you as a woman don't have to prove your worth to anybody. What does that even make sense? But that's why I said when you have these discussions, it offends because people go against once they set their beliefs, again, is attached to their feelings. Once they have a belief, they make it the way they view life and feel about life, never learning anything else. I ask people all the time, don't tell me no, don't try to scold me or mold me when you ain't opening up no goddamn books and learning anything. Because you're not the college professor, so why are you so right all the time when you don't even study and learn? It's hard for me to take advice from somebody I see that I don't even like to read. Because 9 out of 10 times, they're going to teach me something from TikTok. 9 out of 10 times, they're going to teach me something from Instagram. 9 out of 10 times, they're going to teach me something from Facebook. They're not even going to teach me anything of substance because 9 out of 10 things on TikTok and social media is all about clickbait anyway. It's creating a way of getting you to get involved. And that's what you see in reality. I don't come on here trying to troll. I come on here to be honest. And the people that follow me and respect me are people that want to hear the truth. I'm tired of hearing lies. I'm tired of living in a lie. I'm tired of us fighting with each other when in reality, most cases, most people are going to have to work together and build a good life. It's just what it is. And a man or a woman shouldn't be measured based on their finances. A man or a woman should be based on how lazy they are, how inconsistent they are. Just because you're not the super breadwinner that she had in her dreams don't mean you're not a good man. And I want my man to understand that. Just because you haven't reached the level of financial security that she would like for her materialistic lifestyle don't make you less of a man. Sometimes you got to be willing to walk away from those materialistic women. Because in reality, it is not my job to give you a falsified lifestyle because you're watching Jay-Z and Beyonce. You're not Beyonce and he's not Jay-Z. We are two people who sit down every day and work out jobs and try to build a life together. And the sad reality is most people will have a successful relationship if they spend less time trying to work on the other person to be somebody they want them to be. That's why most people failing in relationships. The reason why our grandparents' relationships worked is because they spent more time accepting each other. Your grandmother knew that your grandfather gambled. She knew it, so you know what she started doing? She started taking the goddamn money so he couldn't do it. That's what she did. Our grandparents had horrible relationships comparable to what society says today. They had the same exact relationships. The only issue is they was willing to do the things that change the narrative rather than complain about the narrative. They just, I'm gonna change the narrative. I'm gonna change the narrative. When your grandfather came home, guess what? You want to go out and see Miss Brenda down the street? The door locked. You ain't getting up in that house. That's what their relationships was. The women in those days, they were more strategical in figuring out how to basically move the relationship forward. The relationships today is all about complaining, and you're sitting in the same spot. It's crazy when you have people complaining about the same thing for 10, 15, 20 years. Like, I'm tired of hearing it. At a certain point, you got to look at yourself in the mirror and say, it's you that's crazy. It's you. It's you. Right? These babies that you sit down with, I deal with a lot of young people, and when you deal with them, you'll see how insecure these boys are. So my ladies, and I'm gonna say this, a lot of the times we have these conversations. Can a woman raise a man? I'm asking you guys, can a woman raise a man? A lot of men will say no. But a woman can raise a man if she's conscious, to the point where she puts him around a lot of men to show him. Just because a man ain't in her household don't mean she can't put men around her son to help him learn how to be a man. So when they say, can a woman raise a man? Yes, she can if she's wise enough to know it's bigger than her. If a woman leads with her ego, right, thinking that in most cases, I'm going to say this on record, a lot of women in today's society think they're superior parents. And the reason why they think they're superior parents is because they have a thing with them where they believe that that child is theirs first. And ladies on my live right now, keep it real with yourself. A lot of women believe that that child is theirs first. Most women see the father as a second-tier parent. And if anybody say they're lying, they're lying to themselves. I'm not saying you, I'm just saying in most cases, most women see themselves as a superior parent. And the father is the second tier. And the sad part is, the women that think like that, statistics do not match that mentality. And the reason why I say it is because most women that raise children by themselves, they have the worst statistics on earth when it comes to single parents. And ladies, I'm not gonna say if your circumstances permit you where you gotta raise your child by yourself, your first goal is to put good examples of men around them. Don't be a woman complaining about men and then you bringing home the worst dude on earth to come lay up at your house. You telling your son, ain't no man go live in no woman's house, but then you got a guy living up in your house. Don't be the hypocrite. Don't be the person complaining about your child smoking when they see you smoking. Don't be the hypocrite. So if you're gonna lead by example, lead by action, lead by being consistent. That's how you parent. You can't tell your child don't do one thing, but you do the same thing that you're telling them not to do. And that's the reality that you see in today's society. Most of us has that do as I say mentality, not as I do mentality. When you have that do as I say mentality, you're going to always accommodate what you do because you're going to say you shouldn't be watching me anyway. That's one of the worst goddamn parents on earth. That's a horrible parent. A lot of my women feel like they're the superior parent when it comes to parenting. And I'm going to say it, I'll say it again and again and again. A lot of women feel like they're the superior parent when it comes to parenting. And here's the dilemma. I'm gonna give you a scenario. One day, I had my homeboy, and he had another kid over there, right? One of the kids always allowed people to take things from him, right? I knew that about the other kid. The kid always allows the kid to take stuff from him. And all the kid do is cry. As a male, you know what I did? I assessed the situation. I said, if I keep protecting her, she's gonna always look for somebody to protect her. I'm gonna teach y'all something. There's a saying that's been around for years. They say a shoulder to cry on becomes a hard penis to ride on. You know what that comes from? You know what that statement comes from? That statement comes from girls who have single fathers or single mothers. What you do as a man, you pretend to care about her feelings. She vents to you, and eventually you sleep with her. It's a manipulation tactic that's been going on for generations. So therefore, if a woman doesn't learn how to A, self-soothe, B, defend herself, she will always look for somebody to defend her. And when she's looking for somebody to always defend her, she'll never see her own strength. So she'll constantly run to people to protect her when she should have learned how to protect herself. And the same thing with the boy. If the boy doesn't learn how to self-soothe, he will always look for what? Somebody to soothe him. And if he doesn't learn this, he will be more inclined to look for a mother than he is willing to look for a wife. And then you see the guys nowadays, why do they run to women as mothers? Because of the fact that they never learned how to self-soothe. They never learned how to make up their bed. They never been showed their strength. So guess what they do? They look for strength from women the same way the mother coddled them. They look for the same thing through life. And a lot of times, I'm going to say this on record, most women will not date the sons they raised. Most women will not date the son they raised. Because in reality, you raised them with ego. You didn't raise them with logic. Every child should be raised with logic. If I'm a single father of a daughter, you have to put as many healthy women around this girl to show how to be a woman. Otherwise, she's going to be very masculine. She's going to be very, very, very masculine. And an over-masculine woman is very toxic. Because a masculine woman is also impulsive because women are naturally what? Feeling-based creatures. So if a woman is always masculine, she's a dangerous woman. She's going to be very impulsive. That's the woman that will swing on a man knowing that this man, if he really wanted to, he could beat her up. She knows that he could physically beat her. But her impulsiveness makes her believe that she could defend, she could beat him. This is the issue we have in today's society. We are bleeding on our children who are being raised to hate each other, not realizing that the number one issue is the person that raised you and yourself. We have issues that we need to break out. We need to get out of our ways. We got to get out of our ways, right? You know what today's topic is, right? Stop weaponizing your children. Again, the reason why I didn't jump in for the little girl is because I have a rule. You know what my rule is? I want to see what you do first. If you don't defend yourself, why the hell should I defend you? The rule is you should defend yourself first before anybody defends you. If you're not willing to defend yourself, I'm not jumping in for you. It don't make no sense. Because what you're going to do is you're going to become conditioned to someone always defending you. And that's what our culture do. We look for people to defend us because you never was taught your own strength. I got a rule. You laugh at people that lose a fight. I don't laugh at people that lose a fight. I laugh at people that don't fight back. That's the difference. Anybody could lose a fight. But I'm laughing at the person that didn't even try to fight back. That's when there's a problem. If you're not comfortable with losing, then you shouldn't be winning. If you can't accept a loss, then you don't deserve to win. Because wins and losses comes with life. You got to be able to accept wins. You got to be able to accept losses. But as a child, you have to teach that. The other day, my boy said to his son, he said, don't crash out. He said, if you lose, every time my son loses, he crash out. I said, yo, you got to get him out of that estrogen. You got to get him out of them feelings. Because as a man, he's going to take a lot of losses. I don't care that he's cute, right? There's a lot of cute kids that can't get older and they still try to live in their cuteness. There's a lot of girls who are attractive, they try to live off their looks. But I'm going to tell you something. You could be cute, shorty, but you have some ugly ways. You got some very ugly ways, some very toxic ways, some very immature ways. And the same with a boy. He could be cute as hell, but inconsistent, irresponsible, a liar. But again, I can give it all the way across the board. But when you look at the fact that you kept telling your son or daughter to your daddy ain't this, yeah, you was creating a problem. You was creating a problem. You was creating a problem. And now you get older, guess what happens? More than likely, we mirror exactly what we were taught. We mirror it. One of my young men, you know what he said to his mother? He said the worst thing you could have kept saying to me is, you don't need a, she kept telling him she don't need a man. She said, why is that? What that got to do with me? He said, I never felt like I needed a woman. He said, I never felt like I needed a woman because you always told me how much you don't need a man. So I never saw value in myself because you always talk down on men. Ladies, when you sit there and talk bad about a man and you got a son, you're diabolical. You're diabolical. I don't talk bad about women. Because in reality, you have good women, you have bad women. You have good men, you have bad men. But the reality is we need to learn what is the reasoning behind this consistent, look at, would you say this generation very entitled? Why is it this way? It's something going on. You know what went on? I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. Mommy and daddy probably grew up broke, right? So mommy and daddy say, you know what? I refuse to let my kid grow up like that. So guess what? You gave your kid everything you didn't have. So guess what? Your kid had no urge to go change the narrative and build themselves to everything. They waited for you to keep giving them to the point where they still feel like you could keep giving them and keep giving them and keep. You know why? Because they never had to work for them damn selves. You never showed them their own goddamn strength. So their strength is falsified. It's codependent on your strength. This is why you see the generation now, when we were growing up, you know what we said? My mama house. You know what this generation say? My house. They don't pay a goddamn bill in that house, but they'll say, come to my house. Why is it that way? Because the parents allowed them to believe that it's theirs. This is the culture. Ladies and gentlemen, behind every action is a reaction. We got to look at the toxic behaviors that we teaching our children who are only going to, guess what, find somebody to hurt. And it's going to be a continuous pattern forever. We weaponize our children. You talk to your child as if you're talking to your homegirl in the streets. Your daughter seen you twerk. Your son seen you have a multitude of women, and then you wonder why your son don't respect women. Did you hear that? Your son seen you with a multitude of women and you wonder why he don't have no respect for women. Because the man that he idolizes, right, the woman that you idolize was promiscuous. And then you wonder why your son or daughter is like that. Imagine, you know how crazy that feel? And I'm gonna as a son to see that your mother's a hoe. To find out your mama a hoe. You know what that do to a little boy? It'll break his spirit. There's a kid. And I don't want to tell the business, but I'm going to say it. The mother came to one of the games, a little provocative looking. The little boys was talking bad to him about how the mother looked provocative. She got offended. Rather than her getting her logic, justifying her behavior, but not seeing that you have a bigger behind. So therefore, with having a bigger behind, the kids will see that you have a bigger behind. These boys are teenage boys who happen to know what a butt is. And they see your butt. And not only do they see your butt, you have on tights that you can see your underwear. So a horny little 13-year-old boy is seeing your booty. When you told her this, she got defensive rather than getting her logic. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a time and a place for everything in life. There's a time and a place for everything in life. I'm not going to sit there and say as a father or as a mother, you could do things around your friends that your kids should never see you do. We all have another personality. Everyone has multiple personalities. When you go to work, you act a certain way, then you don't act at home, right? But again, you have to think of that same narrative with parenting. Black folk, we say things in front of our kids be diabolical. Diabolical. Our kids know too much. Ever look at them kids online be cursing, man? They talk like they grown adults. On a game, they be online talking crazy. Where do you think they get this stuff from? You better not repeat that. How about you never say that in front of them? You don't want to do the work, right? Look at that though. Rather than you do the work, you tell your kid, you better not repeat me. Why don't you just work on yourself and learn everything doesn't warrant you talking the way you talk? Elevate your vernacular. Challenge your child to think different, right? When the last time you sat with your child and said, let's open a book together? We talk about financial literacy. I'll be trying to teach them, let's read a book together and then let's go over the chapter. Look at that. That's the best way to do it. Let's read a chapter together and let's go over the chapter. Now you're falsifying it. We can impede on a child's development if we decide to push it into their narrative. You cannot, in most cases, people are not just going to naturally be inspired. You have to inspire the change by becoming the change. Let me say that again. You can only inspire the change by becoming the change, right? You can't inspire a change if you're not willing to be the change. It says Black and Hispanic families are getting left behind in the wealth race. I want y'all to hear this. The average white household added $85,000 in wealth this year versus over $25,000 for Black and Hispanic families. The unemployment rate for white workers has held steady in the recent months, while a surge for Black and Hispanic workers definitely has changed. It went worse. The new analysts underscored the inequality of the K-shaped economy, where better off households gain most of the benefits while people with lower incomes struggle. And when you look at lower incomes, you know why you say lower incomes? Because we're in a society where you have to understand that multiple incomes are two people working together. I have people right now who are so ununified to the point where they believe that they're going to be the superhero. I'm going to tell you, brothers and sisters, something, and I'm going to tell you something logical. All you people who believe you're going to get rich, most of y'all going to die before you get rich because you can't outwork life. You can only strategically beat life by being smart, by elevating your resources, by putting more people together so you can cheat the game. You cannot beat life. You can never outwork how much money they can print. Let me say that one more time. You can never outwork how much money they can print. The only way you can beat the system is by creating a system within the system, which is your family. The one time God has given us a chance at life is choosing our mates so we can start our new family, but a lot of us are choosing wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, just because you and your baby father, your baby mother didn't work out, don't mean that your child has to feel your trauma and drama. It's so sad that when you get older, you've aged, but a lot of y'all haven't grown. Y'all sitting back on the elementary school. You try to put on your elementary school clothes as adults because a lot of us still have our premature mentality. We get offended when a man says something about a woman. We get offended when a man says something about a man. What are we, sassy? I think it's both of us, men and women sassy. Sassy. Like, grow up. A woman can't just act in her feelings and act repulsive and talk about some, he should never got, you sound crazy, so control your emotions, sister. Brother, yo, she got me tight, so brother, control your emotions, brother. You're a grown man. Because what is the difference between you and a child? If y'all both acting the goddamn same. We gotta grow the hell up. Stop making excuses for our poor behavior and start changing our poor behavior. And then we can change the narrative. I'm gonna say this on record, no matter what I've been through with my child's mother, my child will never know. That's between me, her, and God. Because again, the moment you have a child is the moment you realize that this is a dedication for whatever term my child needs and until they get themselves together. I will never sit with my child talking crazy with their mother because we didn't work out. I'm gonna give somebody a chance to call in real quick. 516-253-1150. I'm gonna give somebody a chance to call in right now. 516-253-1150. Call in right now. We gotta stop weaponizing our children. Stop talking crazy about your baby mother. And I'm gonna say this on record. Any man that talks bad about his baby mother's a sucker, especially if you're talking to your children. Talk to your homeboys about that. Stop talking to your kids about your baby mother. You're a sucker if you do that. And I'm gonna say this on record. Any woman that talks bad about her baby father to her kids, she's a sucker too. Hands down, sucker. Because you immature as hell. Grow up. Grow the hell up. Stop talking to your kids. Stop telling your children what y'all got going on. Know what I'm saying? Because the one thing you're gonna tell your daughter or your son is this. Oh, your mother is this or your daddy is this, but you're gonna tell your mother and you're gonna tell them that your mother and father come from a lot of trauma. And they don't understand how to fight it. You ain't gonna tell them the whole story. You know, I was easily able to forgive my father because I realized that my father didn't raise him. So when my father didn't raise me, I understood it even better. Let me say that again. I was able to respect my father even more because I realized that I had to be the one to break the curse. My father didn't raise him. My father didn't raise me. So guess what? I said I refuse to not raise my children. Somebody got to break the damn cycle. Somebody got to break the cycle. But if you holding on to the cycle and angry because of the last cycle, then guess what? The next generation will create the same cycle. Somebody got to realize that it's wrong and fix it. Because of what he did or didn't do, it doesn't have nothing to do with what I'm not going to do. Because you can go spend all your money, but guess what? Mine's is still in my goddamn pocket. Life is a choice. We got to realize that we got to make better choices. Even when others are doing wrong, we got to do what's right. And the one thing we got to stop doing is bleeding on each other. My baby mother is not my enemy. My child mother is not my enemy. Your baby father is not your enemy. Your baby daddy is not your enemy. The enemy is you not fixing yourself and working on yourself. So your anger and frustration is coming out on how you talk about your mate. And a lot of times the reason why men and women talk bad about their baby mothers and baby fathers, because it's how we feel about ourselves. It's how we feel about ourselves. And I'm going to say that on record again. If you keep talking about your baby mother, baby father, your baby mother, your baby, whatever you want to call them, baby this, whatever, it's how we feel about ourselves. Because if you love your child OD, you'll bite your tongue and say, I'm going to let you see it for yourself. That's when you become a true parent. I'm going to give y'all one more chance before I get out of here today. 516-253-1150. One more time, 516-253-1150. Give me a testimony real quick. Something that you've seen that go on in society that we see every damn day. One thing I do see is we definitely teach our children a bad mentality to the point where they're creating a new generation with a bad mentality. And then we complain about the children having bad mentalities. But we say our children see way too much. They know way too much. You gotta let a child develop as a child as long as possible, keeping them in the innocent stage as long as you can possibly do it. But you can't let a child see grown-up things and then wonder why your child is so grown and fresh. They fresh and grown because of you. You don't want to hear that though, right? That is diabolical. Guys, I'm gonna say this before we get out of here today. Let's learn how to love each other again and appreciate what was or what wasn't and understand that everything happens for a reason. Because the moment you question your baby father is the moment you question God, because in reality, God gives life. So if God gives life, that means he don't make no mistakes when it comes to giving life. Everything happens for a reason. I know some women right now that talk crazy about their baby father and not being there, but really, reality, they became better women when they became parents. So that circumstance actually made you better. I know some men who became better men when they had children. So reality is God doesn't give us no more than we can bear. We have to understand we have to bear these circumstances, deal with them, mature up, grow up, and let's raise our children accordingly and right. And if the woman is giving or the man is giving you a hard time, when was the last time that you prayed for that person? Till next time, guys. Don't let that go over your head.